Greetings everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm the Shotgun Shogun and this is another episode of The Training Grounds. Now, on today's episode, we will be talking about Apocalypse Ravi, who has been a very highly requested unit in the comment sections. If you guys do have a unit that you would like to see me cover, go ahead and mention it down below. Before that, though, I would like to thank all the Patreons who do help make these things possible. You guys are the real MVPs. If you would like to join them, there's a link down in the description. But without further ado, let's get into Apocalypse Ravi. When she was released, she was heralded as one of the worst 5-star MLs in the game. Absolutely and utterly useless. Nobody in their right mind would gear or use Apocalypse Ravi. That was until the clamoring for a buff finally yielded some fruits, and she shot immediately up to this unit is the absolutely most broken piece of garbage that has ever been created into this game. Smilegate, why would you ever create something along these lines? Now, I personally used her as soon as she came out. I really enjoyed her. She was phenomenal. She did have a little bit of a scaling. She had to ramp up her S2, as before it wasn't a static crit chance. But before we get into all of her skills and everything that makes her able to 1v4 people, you've seen it on videos, you've probably ran into it yourself. Let's get into her stats. Now, at 60, with all of your awakening at 6 stars, you're going to have 975 attack, 652 defense, 7,054 health, 106 speed, and the rest is default. Now, you will be thinking, man, she does so much damage. 600 or 975 must be pretty good. Actually, her attack is around the middle of the pack, with characters like Enot actually having more base attack than Apocalypse Ravi. Now, she does share the same stat line with Alencia, and if you've ever seen anything that I've done with Alencia, or if you've watched my Alencia guide, you'll know how much damage Alencia can output. Now, the nice thing is this does make her HP does make her a bit more of a tanky bruiser, right? Which is good because she scales off of HP, which would make sense. So what she does lack in base attack, she's going to be making up with HP scaling, and contrary to Alencia, Apoc Ravi scales a bit better off of both attack and HP, so this is something that you're going to want to balance, and I will talk about that a little bit later when I go over some of the numbers and how to gear her out. So she is semi-quick, which means that you don't have to build a ton of speed on her to get natural turns. A lot of people actually, in fact, build crit and make her very slow. I personally, or not crit, but counter and build her very slow. Personally, not my favorite build, and I'll talk about the bonuses and the negatives, the cons, the pros and the cons of all of those builds shortly. Now, if you take her a memory imprint, self-imprint is effect resist, and your team-wide is health to your middle row, which is pretty good. It is 12.9% health, which is really solid if you're trying to put some heavy tanky people into those spots, or if you do have an Alencia, you can put Alencia into one of those spots as well to help with that HP scaling. Now, taking a look at her skills, her S1 is Spectral Axe, and this is going to be just your standard S1 attack, right? This attacks the enemy with an axe, absorbing some of the damage dealt as health. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. Now, this is very similar to, that's right, the Fire Ravi S1. Now, when you do Soul Burn, again, this is going to greatly increase the damage dealt, does not trigger a dual attack. So that is phenomenal, right? Very much copy-paste of the regular Fire Ravi S1. Now, the S2 is going to be where she really is kind of where she shines, right? I really do like this S2 quite a bit. Now, War God's Might, this is going to consume 10 fighting spirit to recover health after being attacked. This is what makes her even more tanky, and you can build her with a little bit less mitigation, but you really don't want to. But this is what's going to keep her just kicking around 5 ever. So after you're attacked, you regain some health, right? She starts the battle with 50 fighting spirit, and the amount of recovered increases proportional to her health. This also statically increases her critical hit chance by 30%, meaning that you can build her with a 100% chance to crit much easier, meaning that you have more stat areas, more stat pool to add to health, to add to speed, to add to crit damage, to add to attack, because unlike Alencia, you're not going to be stacking just crit damage. Now, crit damage is going to be very good, but if you're all crit damage, no attack, you're going to be hitting like a wet noodle. Same with if you're just all HP crit chance, crit damage, again, still wet noodle, not as wet noodle, but still kind of a wet noodle. Now let's get into S3, and this one is really, really good. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, whenever this first came out, they were like, man, this is going to just cause AoE extinction, literally delete everything from the map, and they were disappointed, like they always are, because that's just how this game works. But yeah, regardless, this delivers divine judgment upon the enemy. When an enemy is defeated, revives one random dead ally with 10% health and increases their combat readiness by 100% before granting skill nullifier once. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health. Now, this is phenomenal, and this means that when Apoc Ravi is on the field, you don't really need to bring a reviver, right? So, and even if your reviver dies, let's say your maid gets killed, you can bring them back. Apoc Ravi is really, really clutch in having some just, not only does this do ridiculously high damage on a 4-turn cooldown, but again, you do have the chance to bring somebody back to life with skill nullifier. They did fix that at one point. I think that it didn't have it, but now it does bring them back with skill nullifier, meaning that they're going to be able to eat one hit, because otherwise, well, it'd be kind of like Maid, where they bring them back in an AoE or a slight breeze can just straight kill them. Now, again, like I said, these are based on a bit different of a modifier than Alencia. You're going to have more attack modifier on this. The HP scaling is similar to Alencia's, and I think actually on the S3 it is better than Alencia's S3, but this is also single target versus AoE. So again, you are going to want to make sure that you are balancing all of your abilities to get the most out of your skills in min-maxing, as well as keeping yourself very healthy. Now, one of the big things too is that she does have the self-imprint effect resist. Now, again, with most bruisers, effect resist is going to be very, very big, and a lot of people will run seed on her, and we'll go over the artifacts here in a hot minute. But if you do have her and you do want to start running some effect resist, which I mean, I do suggest, you know, typically on a bruiser, you want like 100 to 125 minimum. That's going to prevent pretty much any dedicated debuffer from actually debuffing you. So chances are you're not going to get hit with the random provokes, you're not going to get hit with the random defense breaks or anything along those lines. So that's something to make sure that you keep in mind. Now let's go over some of your artifacts. Now you have Lennox's Wrath, and sometimes, especially like with Apoc Ravi, if you don't really want to, let's say you want to put your stats into something else, let's say you want to put them into attack, HP, crit damage, Lennox's Wrath, if you don't have enough critical chance or you want to run something else, this can be a good option to kind of increase your overall critical hit chance as things go along. I do think that there are other better options than this, but this is an option nonetheless. I think Draco Plate, though, is probably going to be your absolute best option, and this is the same on most warriors except for Little Queen Charlotte, because she has the passive critical hit damage reduction. But this is going to just increase that critical hit damage. It's going to give you 30% critical hit damage. It's going to increase your survivability by reducing the critical hit damage taken by 16%. And it also, Francesca is really, really hot, and I would just, anytime I can see Francesca on my artifact is good. Durandal is another option, and this is because, well, you're going to be getting hit. The problem with Durandal is that if you are below 75%, chances are they've been really whittling away at your fighting spirit, so this could give you that extra push that you need to start lapping. Personally, I've tried Durandal in the past. Not my favorite artifact, but it is an option if you have it. I do think Durandal is better on other units, mostly because I build my Ravi with speed, so Durandal's not necessarily the best option in my situation. Now, you have Sigurd Scythe, and you could think of Sigurd Scythe similar to the way that you would run Sigurd Scythe on a regular Ravi or on anybody else. Actually, like regular Ravi is probably the other one that I would run this on, other that has passive lifesteal, correct? So you're going to be getting back a lot more hit points, and you're going to be doing a lot more damage if you are down below 50%, meaning that, you know, if you do get off that S1, you're going to be getting back most of your health on that. Not only that, but this will also give you that lifesteal if, let's say, you do have to hit the S3, right? So this is an option. Again, I don't see too many people really run this on Apoc Ravi. It's okay, but it's not the typical one that you would run. Now, this one I have used quite a few times in the past on her, and if I'm using Draco Plate on somebody else, I will actually typically run this on my Apoc Ravi, and this is Herber's Tooth. Now, the reason being is that unlike Alencia, right, you are going to want to run more attack on her. So this can give you that just even more damage over the top, because you get that extra 100% chance to inflict additional damage after your single attack, which both of her attacks are single attack, and this is damage, it does increase based on her attack overall. And like I said, since you do want to balance everything a little bit more, you're going to be getting more out of this than, you know, you would on an Alencia or something along those lines. I think Herber's Tooth is a very underrated artifact. Now, if you are running a counter attack Apoc Ravi, Crimson Seed is going to probably be your go-to. Additionally, you can use Timeless Anchor, because while Timeless Anchor has a little bit less of a chance to dispel your buff when you're attacked, or your debuff when you're attacked, it has endless chances, whereas Crimson Seed only has one. So if you are using Crimson Seed, you're going to be wanting to use it on a quicker Apoc Ravi, let's say a counter attack Apoc Ravi with some substat speeds and speed boots. That way you get those natural turns, you get your cooldown on this a lot quicker. If they're only putting one debuff on you, let's say they don't have a ton of debuffs, then this is going to be probably your better option over Timeless Anchor. Again, if you're going to be running super slow, Timeless Anchor is going to be better because it does not have a cap on how many times it can clear out the debuffs. Now, Hellcutter is going to be a very typical one as well, especially on your slower Apoc Ravis, and that's because this is going to give you the critical hit chance as well as the attack that you need in order to hit like an absolute truck. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use this on a counterattack build, but you can, because chances are, even though counterattack, who knows when it's going to trigger and then get rid of your Hellcutter stacks, but when it does, you're going to be hitting a little bit harder, right? So it's definitely an option. I think that there's better ones, but if you are lacking in critical hit chance or critical or caster attack, base attack, regular attack, whatever attack, this is going to give it to you. Now, Strak Gauntlet is another one. If you're building base effect resist, then Strak Gauntlet is pretty good, right? Let's say you build 125 effect resist, right? Slap a Strax on and they're going to have a really hard time locking you down. And if you are cycling semi-fast, you're going to be keeping your health above 50%, no problem. And you're going to be shrugging off any debuffs that they accidentally may happen to land on you. Strax is very good, and I always suggest, like, at least have one of these to plus 30, because you can use this on a regular Fire Ravi, an Apoc Ravi, a Dark Corvus, anybody that you need to just slap that extra 60% effect resist on and is going to be above 50% health regularly, right? So this is going to be really good. Now, you can use Proof or you can use Sepulchrum in order to reduce your overall damage taken. Personally, not my favorite build, but it is an option there. Now, the Sepulchrum is kind of like Proof of Valor, except it works reverse, right? So this one's going to reduce damage taken by 8% for every three stack. It will stack 3 times and then it just stays, right? Whereas Proof of Hours starts high and then comes down. So there's there's your artifacts. Right now there's a couple of different builds, and I'm going to show you my build right now. This is a picture of my build because I moved some stuff around the other day, and I like went to go this morning and I'm like, oh crap, that's right, I moved everything. But I want to show you my, like, the pinnacle. This is my favorite Apoc Ravi to run, and she does metric piles of damage. Now don't get me wrong, this is like ridiculously high gear Apoc Ravi, right? So you do have the attack, you do have the critical hit damage. The Draco Plate puts her at almost critical hit damage cap, and you have 197 speed with a good amount of health. Now don't get me wrong, I could put more health onto her, but I personally like the speed, right? Because I'm a big fan of natural turns. I don't like units that are very slow. I've moved away from relying on critical hit or for counter chance, because you're relying on RNG, right? The more that I can shrug that off, if she does get debuffed, let's say she does get stunned by like a Cerise or something along those lines, I have enough speed on her to not be sitting there and getting lapped. I'm not going to be getting lapped very often. Chances are I am going to be running her with some sort of cleanse or something along those lines. When she hits disgustingly hard, and that is one of the big things that I wanted to build her with. Now additionally, other really good builds and things that I've ran in the past, a lot of people will run the very high damage, very high tanky counter attack Apoc Ravi, and that is very, very good as well, as long as you, like I said, you're running like a timeless anchor, you're running a seed of some sort, you're running a Durandal, you're running the effect resist Strax, so that you're not getting locked down. And that's one of the big problems that Apoc Ravi runs into, is if you can debuff and control her, you can run her S2 out of Fighting Spirit, and then after that she's a bit of a sitting duck. Now don't get me wrong, at 20k hit points, 1200 defense, chances are even after she runs out of her S2 healing, it's still going to be a little bit of time to take her down, right? So in that time, she's going to be cycling. Even if she were on a counter attack set, chances are she's going to be getting a turn at some point. If you're not running heavy effectiveness debuffers, you're not going to be locking her down. So there are a couple different ways to run her. You can either run her, like I said, the counter attack, high effect resist, high damage, high mitigation, or you can run a speed Apoc Ravi. And personally, I feel like if you're running in RTA, right, speed is king on pretty much everybody. And a lot of times too, especially when you come at it from an RTA standpoint, I can just straight ignore any unit that I know has counterattack on it and then deal with it when I have to deal with it. Now, it does kind of suck when you're Apoc Ravi, when you're up against an Apoc Ravi and they have a counter set and they are literally the last thing and all you can do is hit her. And of course, if it's on defense or it's the opponent's Apoc Ravi, literally counterattack every single time, because then it's going to really, really wreck you. Her S1 lifesteal, her S2 mitigation is very, very strong. Now, I wanted to go over some numbers with you just to show you kind of how much damage this can do. So if you're taking a look here, I plugged in my numbers, right? So 2600 attack, 306 crit damage with the Draco Plate. She's got 19,281 hit points. I have her at plus 15 personally, and as you can see, her S3 is going to be hitting for 13.5k on a non-defense broken target with no attack buff. Now, if I were to, let's say, add in an attack buff, that's going to jump that up to 16,000. Soulburned S1 is going to be 20k right there. That is against a 1k defense target. Now let's add in a where is Arius damage transfer, Arius max Arius? So that's still going to be 12.5 thousand, 12.3k with just an Arius present on the field. Now, a lot of people don't run their units too defensive, but let's say we're up against another bruiser, right? Okay, so we're still going to be doing 10,000 here. You're going to be hitting for about 7,500 on each of the S1s. This is through an Arius. That is an extra 10% defense there. So that's going to be pretty big damage right there. Now, again, obviously, if you're running into an Arius Adamant Shield, you're not going to be doing much damage. But then again, nothing is going to be doing much damage right there. But let's say you're up against a no Arius, no Adamant Shield. Let's say you banned both of them. You get the defense break off with Falconeer Quarry. You're going to be doing 32,000 damage to anything that's defense broken with attack, with just an attack buff. If it's if you have elemental advantage, that's going to be 36,000 damage on your S3. That's a lot of damage right there. That is a preposterous. You're going to one shot anything. It doesn't matter if you can get that off. And a lot of times I do run my Ravi really fast because I want her to follow up Falconeer Quarry to just do this, to just literally delete anything that I can from the map. So even with the defense break, let's see how much it is through Adamant Arius. So even with Adamant Arius, if you're defense breaking, if you can get a defense break off and you can get an increased attack, you're going to be doing 23,000 damage with these stats right now. Something I wanted to show you here, let's go back to baseline real quick. We'll get rid of all this mitigation. So, defense break is off here. So I wanted to show you just kind of how much you're going to be looking at. So let's say you only have, we'll get rid of Draco Plate, right? We don't want to muddy the waters here. So everything is baseline. We're up against a 1,000 defense target, right? So if you're just baseline, no artifact, let's say you're running like a Strax or something along those lines, you're going to be doing about 12.2k damage. Now, let's say you have better attack gear than you have critical hit damage gear. Okay, let's actually, to make these numbers a little bit easier, let's say you got 20,000 hit points. All right, so at this point, and we'll even these things out. Let's say you had 26,000, 2,600 and 300 crit damage. Now, one of the big things here is you can see that you do need to balance these out a little bit. So if you went to like 3,000 attack and 280, you're going to be doing about the same damage here. So when you look at it, you kind of have to think about how much attack do I have versus how much crit damage. So if we go back to 300 and 2,600, you can see that 20 crit damage is about the same as 400 attack. So which one can you stack more? Because the problem is, though, let's say you go, okay, what was that, 400 for every 20? So we'll bring this down to 1,800, and then we'll put this up to 340. As you can see in this situation, it's not, it's close, right? You take away 800 attack, you give another 40. The problem is that with the way that her modifiers are, is it's attack times 1 times HP modifier, which I think her S1 is, I think like 0.12%, and then the crit damage, right? So a good Goldilocks zone here is going to be 300 C damage, 2,600 attack. Now that's going to be a little bit harder for some people, especially without full 90 gear to get. So let's say you can only get yourself up to 250 crit damage, right? So if you can get yourself to 3,000 attack, still not going to be, wait, hold on. Yeah. Wasn't I 2,600? Okay. Yeah. So 3,000 is still going to be doing about 11k on your S3. Now I do highly suggest, you know, sticking around 2,600 and then modifying your critical hit damage up So out of all the numbers that I ran, the gear combinations that I could get, things along those lines, that was kind of the baseline here. Now I want to show you, let's say we keep these exactly the same, right? How much damage does an extra 2,000 hit points get you versus your attack? So this isn't going to get you as much, right? So 2,000, we got what, 10,271. So this is going to give you, it's if you would put in the, so 10,271, you get 500 damage out of 2,000 hit points. So if you can aim for 20k hit points, that's probably pretty good. You don't get, like I said, you don't get as much crit HP scaling as possible. So even if you did, let's see, 300 critical hit damage, let's say you had to drop your attack down to 2k just to increase your overall HP, right? So at 300 crit damage, if you add another 2, what did we have here? 10, 9, 64. So this is going to give you a bit more when you stack crit damage. So this is one of the big things that I'm trying to get around, and I've been talking in circles here quite a bit, but you have to balance the three. And honestly, when you are getting ready to optimize and gear your Apoc Ravi, go to Maths Damage Calculator, put in what you can get, tweak things here and there. You can save down here. I actually don't know what I think this was, Little Queen Charlotte, or no, this is Alencia. I was doing some Alencia testing. Go down here, really kind of hammer things out. Typically, I will actually use 1200 as my baseline for enemy defense. I try to not rely on increased attack or decreased defense because those are typically things that you can't guarantee that you're going to have in any sort of RTA match. Now, if you're looking at Guild Wars, you're looking at anything like that, speed tuning wise, then you can kind of think about that, adding that in. But these are things that you kind of want to take a look at and how you want to build your counterattack Apoc Ravi or your speed Apoc Ravi. Again, going back, I do run 4-piece speed, 2-piece crit. Chances are you'll want to run 4-piece counterattack, 2-piece crit, or depending on what your substats are, 4-piece counterattack, 2-piece immunity, or HP. Your 2-piece set really depends on what you have substat wise, right? A lot of people ask me, well, like what 2-piece should I use, or what 4-piece should I use? And really at the end of the day, it really depends on your substats and where you can make things up, right? Now, obviously, if you're going to run speed, 4-piece speed with speed boots, right? If you have some good speed substats, then though you can go with maybe like an attack main boot or an HP main boot. Personally, I run crit damage on my neck. I'll typically run either HP or attack on the ring. I think she's currently on an HP, or at least was in this picture, and then speed on the boots. Now, I do make up for a lot of the other things in some of these other pieces, right, with substats. Obviously, I do think that you should shoot for a minimum of 1200 defense and about 18 to 20k hit points, and then work your damage up from there, because if you're too low on your HP or your defense, you're just going to get rolled over. It doesn't matter how much damage you do, you're going to be a glass cannon and you're going to get absolutely wrecked. Now, you see I have 26.5 effect resist down here. That's actually from other pieces that I have gear on. I do want to actually run her at some point with a very high effect resist build. I have ran it in the past and I had pretty good success with it. But overall, that's my Apoc Ravi build. Now, I know a bunch of people have asked to have me put videos of me using these units in the end. I don't always typically have the unit built at the moment or videos of it. I will link to some videos. I'll go through and look and see places where I've used it, but you can just peruse through some of my other videos, my clapping videos, my Guild Wars videos, to see a lot of these units in in action. So there is that. Also, if I put it at the end of the video, these would be 45-minute videos, and I've already talked for way too long, and I could probably talk for a lot longer about this, but I'm going to get out of here, guys. That's my Apoc Ravi build. Personally, I think that both of them are very, very viable. I do think that speed Apoc Ravi is much, much better in RTA, whereas counterattack Ravi is better on a Guild Wars defense or an arena defense or something along those lines. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. I hope you really enjoyed this episode of the Training Grounds and you took away some knowledge out of this. As always, if you guys really do want to help out the channel, again, there is a Patreon link down below. But you can help me out just by hitting the subscribe button, smashing the bell notification. Let me know down in the comments who you'd like to see next. And as always, if you could just share this out to various places, Reddit, Facebook, Stove, Discords, it really does help me build the YouTube algorithm. And I really appreciate it. It makes me doki doki in my Kokoro. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. This is the Training Grounds, and I'll see you later. Take it easy, homies. Peace.
Cracky.